Welcome to the Environmental Update. I'm your host, Brian Hoppy. I hope you all had a great summer. As we look around, the air is getting a little bit more crisp and the leaves are starting to change color. That means it's time for our fall episode. And it promises to be a great one. We'll hear from our Lower Merion Township Manager and our newly appointed Sustainability Manager. We'll also hear from members of the Lower Merion Shade Tree Commission who will provide us with some tips on tree care for the fall. First off, it's my pleasure to welcome Ernie McNeely, Lower Merion Township Manager, and Paloma Vila, the newly appointed Sustainability Manager for Lower Merion. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Paloma, first I'd like you to, I'd like to say congratulations on your new role.
Thank you.
And it's a great role for the township. But why don't you take a minute or two and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Paloma Vila. I am a alum of Villanova University's Sustainable Engineering program, and before that, Temple University Civil and Environmental Engineering program. I am passionate about sustainability and excited to be here to help Lower Merion Township achieve its sustainability goals.
Excellent. Ernie, I know everybody knows you, but I think they could use a little reintroduction.
Okay, Brian. I've been fortunate enough to be the Lower Merion Township Manager for the last 7.5 years. I came to Lower Merion after spending 27 years managing Westchester over in Chester County. So I have almost better than 4 decades of municipal management experience, but I've truly enjoyed being a manager here in Lower Merion Township. It's a great community.
Thank you, Ernie, and truly, we've been blessed to have you at the helm for the township. I served on the EAC for 10 years, and I think the entire time you were partway through, you got elected or appointed as township manager, and the support that you provided the EAC, and I'm sure the Shade Tree Commission, when they come in, will say the same thing. It's been outstanding. So thank you.
Thank you.
So Paloma, you have the honor of serving as the township's first sustainability manager. Can you tell us a little bit about the scope of what you're going to undertake and what excites you about working for Lower Merion?
Sure. It's my favorite thing to talk about. Lower Merion Township community and the people who work in this building and the people on our advisory boards are a very bright, very engaged group of people. Everyone from township management, the Board of Commissioners, the department directors, and our EAC and Shade Tree Commission, extremely engaged, and they all have sustainability top of mind already. So that's really exciting to me, that my job isn't to come in and convince Lower Merion Township to go green. It's to help Lower Merion Township figure out how to go green in the most cost-effective and impactful way. And that's really exciting for me because it feels like I'm hitting the ground running and just ready to get started.
Excellent. So the township's in the midst of developing a sustainability plan. You have the county that's helping out. You have a group of volunteers that are helping out. The staff's all pitching in. Why is it important for the township to undertake a sustainability planning effort? Ernie, why don't you go first?
Sure. Lower Merion Township has been doing sustainability projects for decades and has done way more than many municipalities have done. But we've been doing it all without sort of a plan, without a guidebook. We've been doing it as opportunities present themselves, and so now it's time, when we have goals to really reduce our footprint, to actually get a plan and begin working with a document to guide us.
And Paloma, why do you think it's important for the township to have a plan, and maybe what are some of the key things you'd like to see in that plan?
Sure. So working off of what Ernie's saying, a plan will allow the township first and foremost to define what its goals and priorities are, not just to me as a sustainability manager, but to the key stakeholders in the township. And then hopefully what it will provide is a roadmap for how to achieve those goals that will help decision makers make those decisions, and will help the community keep us all accountable to making those decisions and achieving those goals. And what the planning process does is it allows you to dive into the data and the science and to really think hard about what actions we can take that will have the most impact, rather than doing more ad hoc environmental projects here and there, which surely do have an impact but don't have any sort of end goal in mind. So that's what I think is the most important part of the planning, of having a sustainability plan. And really what I'm hoping to see in that plan is just science-based information and set concrete goals, and for the final product to be something that we can really take and run with to achieve those goals.
And Ernie, you mentioned that the township's already done a bunch, and we're very proud of a lot of the things that the township's undertaken on the sustainability front, on reducing our footprint or even just reducing the amount of waste we generate. But I think maybe the audience could benefit from understanding a few examples of what we've done as a township already.
I'm so glad you asked that, Brian. Lower Merion Township's been at sustainability projects for decades. It's been 10 years plus since we put a green roof on Ludington Library. It's been about the same period of time since we went geothermal with Bala Kinwood Library. And we've done many projects in between. But lately we've been doing a $3.8 million energy savings project. And that project has replaced all of the 5,000 streetlights in Lower Merion Township with LED fixtures, which saves energy, saves money, and reduces our greenhouse gas footprint. But our most significant action here recently was the hiring of a sustainability manager, Paloma.
That's excellent. And again, I can't believe that we actually have a sustainability manager now. I mean, it was years that we were asking the board, please fund this, and now you're here. So what have you seen since you've been here?
Yeah, so, and by the way, hopefully other townships will take notice and also hire sustainability managers, because I think that it will help things get pushed further along. But to Ernie's point, coming in here, my first few weeks on the job were really just finding out all the things that Lower Merion Township is already doing. And some things don't necessarily have sustainability in the title, but they are very much in favor of sustainability and in service of sustainability goals. Like I said, most of the department directors have sustainability top of mind, either because it's their nature to do so or because the Board of Commissioners has asked them to. But our Public Works Department is constantly looking at transitioning the fleets to electric and figuring out how to make that happen. Our Parks Director is looking at using electric powered equipment and low stress maintenance alternatives, not to mention keep taking care of our beautiful open spaces and parks. Our libraries are thinking about sustainability in lots of different ways, and our building and planning department with their Saldo update that they're doing, transportation design management. I mean, there's just tons of stuff going on that, like I said, doesn't really have sustainability in the name, but is very in favor of sustainability. And the last thing I'll add is that the Board of Commissioners has recently passed a resolution setting target dates to transition to renewable energy and low emission fleets, which is a huge step forward.
It's a great step forward. Anything else, Ernie?
Yeah, Brian, I probably should have mentioned that we're doing other things in sustainability, such as we spent approximately $4 million doing projects that actually clean up stormwater over the last several years. It's part of our pollution reduction plan, but it's just another area where the commissioners here are very, very committed to environmental improvements.
So the township's been doing all this work. What can residents or local businesses do to help out?
Indeed, one of the biggest things they can do is we've been stuck at around the 25 to 27% recycling rate for many years here in Lower Merion, and we've got a robust recycling program, but we should be able to drive that percentage higher. And these days, recycling is actually coming back and being profitable in terms of monetary benefits. So it really would help if folks would recycle more, recycle better, fold, compress the cardboard, because most people don't realize they put these huge boxes out. Well, it takes up a lot of room in the truck, and that means the truck has to make more trips to the dump, and so it drives up cost, and it reduces our efficiency.
My wife is going to love that. She's like, why do you always break down the boxes? Now I have a good answer for her. Anything else, Paloma?
Yeah, so I'll add to that increased recycling and waste reduction from the onset. So reuse as much as you can, reduce the production of waste, take advantage of free cycling and the buy nothing groups, and donating things where you can. You also mentioned the leaves are turning, so it's a great opportunity to talk about leaves and the fact that you don't have to rake leaves, you don't have to blow them away or bag them up. You can mow over them and mulch them in place, and they provide great habitat for the critters over the winter. So that's a great way to reduce your impact, and it actually makes your life easier. And then if you are going to be using a leaf blower, if it's a at-home equipment and it's time to shop for a new one, look for an electric-powered one. It's zero emissions at the source, and they work great for at-home use.
Thank you, Ernie, and again, welcome, Paloma. It's really great to have you here in the township. But it's time for us to take a short break. When we come back, we'll meet two members of the township's Shade Tree Commission who will provide us with some tips for tree care in the fall. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Environmental Update. I'm your host, Brian Hoppy. I'm joined by two members of the Shade Tree Commission, Orsi Lazar and Kim Andrews. Welcome, Orsi and Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Why don't you take a little bit of time and introduce yourself? But first, let me say, as a former member of the EAC, we work closely with the Shade Tree Commission on a number of different things, and it was always great having you there and having the Shade Tree Commission as a partner in the things that we were undertaking for parks, for spotted lanternfly, for whatever, or the green ash borer, anything that we wanted to do, you were always there in support, so thank you. So why don't you take a couple seconds to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Orsi Lazar. I grew up in Hungary and earned my first degree as a biologist in ecology. Then I moved to the US for graduate degrees, and I earned my second master's in molecular biology, which is a little bit of an unconventional path to landscape design, but there is a connection that explains why I do mostly native plants and sustainable gardening. I'm really interested in sustainable land management and urban tree canopy, green infrastructure, so there's a natural connections to trees. I've been a Lower Merion resident for 10 years and been on the Shade Tree Commission for 2.
And I'm a native Philadelphian. I grew up in Philadelphia, but I've lived in Lower Merion Township for more than 25 years. I lived in Ardmore for more than 20 years, and now I'm in Merion for about 7 years. I'm the executive director of the Japan America Society of Greater Philadelphia. So we manage Shifuso, Japanese House and Garden, which is in the Philadelphia Park System in Fairmount Park. So between my familiarity with kind of a smaller, more urbanized area like Ardmore, and then working in Philadelphia within the park system and the arborists there, I know the importance of shade trees to general society, but for the ecological benefit of all of us.
And again, thank you both for volunteering for the Shade Tree Commission and really helping out the residents of Lower Merion through your work. But what does the Shade Tree Commission do for the township?
The Shade Tree Commission oversees the street trees in Lower Merion Township. Those are the trees that are in the public right-of-way along the township streets. Some of the roads are state roads, so we don't have any authority over those trees. Anybody who wants to remove or prune those trees need to get permission from the township arborist. And then if there's any dispute or some of those requests, the Shade Tree Commission reviews, and we make sure that trees are not removed unless there's a good reason for removing that for either hazard conditions or else.
We work really closely with the township arborist, Joe Marco. And one thing that we're working on now is revising the recommended shade tree list because of climate change. That the shade trees that were good for this region 50 years ago are not going to be the trees that will be good for this region, that will thrive in the next 50 years.
Well, speaking of climate change, you know, we've heard so much about that on the news and the increased frequency and intensity of storm events. What are the benefits for our township in terms of the trees that we have for climate change and stormwater management?
Well, actually, climate change impacts in this region, the two biggest impacts are, as you said, the storms. We are going to have bigger storms, more rain events, heavier rains, and consequently more severe droughts. We have more flooding because the water is coming down all at once instead of being able to sweep into the soil, infiltrate into the soil. We're going to have more runoff flooding, which we've seen this summer, obviously, or this fall. And then because the water is not seeping into the soil, we're going to have more droughts later on. The other big problem is the temperature rises, and especially in the summer month, we have a lot more days that are really hot, and trees can mitigate both of those problems. Trees are naturally very good at slowing down the water, so capturing the water in the canopy, and also help infiltrate it through their roots. Because the roots create pores in the soil. And the other thing is obviously they create shade, and anything that's shaded will be cooler. So they can help reduce the need for cooling, reduce energy use.
And on almost a different scale, there are so many societal benefits to shade trees. There's the mental and physical well-being of all of people in Lower Merion and around our country that an urban forest can provide. And on a purely, we're talking about the larger societal benefits, but property values are much higher with healthy shade trees, either on private property or in the rights of way. That the property values can be increased by 5 to 15% by having nice, tall, healthy shade trees providing a canopy over neighborhoods.
So I'd be interested to learn a little bit about some of the trees that maybe used to be on the list that are now being replaced by what kind of trees that would be more hardy in these climate change events that we're having.
Well, some of the trees we're removing from the list because they're invasive. They used to be planted and sold in the nursery, and they're not sold, or we don't recommend planting them because they're invasive, like the Amurcourt tree, Tree of Heaven, obviously. Some of them were introduced by Bartram to the area, and they were spread in other places. Norway maple is a very typical example of that. Other trees we're removing because they're just not doing well. Some of the northern species would not do well. We can see a lot of the ash trees are struggling with the uneven temperatures and diseases. Obviously, the emerald ash borer is the pest that's killing them, but we also see a lot of the sugar maples struggling this year, suddenly dying, perfectly healthy tree. We have oak diseases, so we're not planting red oaks anymore because the red oaks are more impacted by the bacterial leaf scorch. So we're really just planting white oaks at this point. But we're also looking at species that are like the Texodium decium, the bald cypress, the southern species. The northernmost plants are in Delaware, so they're not that far. And just in general, trying to do more diverse planting. So if we're losing any kind of tree due to pest or diseases, we're not losing a large percentage of the trees.
Yeah, you can see in older neighborhoods where there's kind of a monoculture of street trees that are, 75 years old. And as those trees are coming down, we're trying to replace them with a wider variety to protect against the dangers of a monoculture of just vast swaths of trees disappearing. So
what are, you mentioned the street trees, but then there's also a lot of trees on people's properties. What are some of the things that our residents can do or better yet, what are some of the more pressing issues faced by our residents with their trees on their property, and what can they do about it?
I think it's fall is a perfect time for planting, so I would like to encourage everybody to plant a shade tree, big tree, not a little crepe myrtle, not a little dogwood. Plant some big trees that will turn into canopy trees. But the other important thing is to make sure that we're planting those correctly. The biggest concern to me is the lifespan of currently planted trees. A lot of the trees, current research data says 93% of the trees are planted incorrectly or mulched incorrectly. So the combination of the two really increases the lifespan of the trees, and a lot of them die 10, 15 years later. So they survive the warranty period of the 1 year warranty, but they're not going to live long enough to provide the benefits that we just discussed. So I think it's really important. We can provide the website on the screen for the Trees Are Good, which is the educational link to the International Society of Arboriculture. So there's a lot of good resources and information for homeowners, how to plant a tree properly, how to mulch them properly. Make sure when you're mulching that the mulch is not coming up like a volcano, which is what probably see most of the time. The mulch should be flat, more like a pancake with a hole in, or donut, but even more like a pancake. It's really flat and not touch the bark actually at all. And the root flare should be visible. So thinking more like a stem of a stem glassware and not like a big bowl on the base. If the tree looks like a telephone pole, then it's planted to the
This is what we talk about at the Shade Tree Commission. This is our biggest topic of conversation, is tree care. And we've actually, we've put together an outreach committee on the Shade Tree Commission. So we're starting to think about ways that we can reach out to township residents around specific issues, around how to properly plant a tree, what your tree should look like when it's planted, how to mulch it, ivy removal and invasive tree removal. So we're going to be working on that in the next year to get information out to township residents and help them understand what's best to take care of their trees for long life.
And I think you have a great platform here and the crew here at LMTV can certainly help you with that. They're great, and they love going on site. Any other hints for our residents?
I think the other thing is that if you have a big shade tree, we're coming up to the leaf collection season. If you have a big shade tree, you might consider removing the grass from under the tree and create a native woodland garden. And it's beneficial. It's less use of resources. You don't have to mow. You don't have to rake the leaves. You can just let the leaves fall. And it's really helpful for wildlife and insects, birds, everything else. And it's healthy for the tree.
Yeah, Paloma Vila, our new sustainability manager, was just on and said just about the same thing. Let the leaves
we didn't
lie.
talk to each
Let
other.
the leaves lie.
Yes.
That's great. Well, thank you, Orsi and Kim, for being here today and for all your volunteer work on the Shade Tree Commission. Outstanding stuff.
Well, thanks for having
Thank
us.
you very much.
Well, that does it for the fall edition of the Environmental Update. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed today's program. If you have any suggested topics for future episodes or have a question on an environmental issue, please email us at the address below. Thank you again and see you this winter. Be safe and stay healthy.